Thank you. Good afternoon, fellow citizens. I know our candidates and parents have been patiently waiting for this day. We apologize for the delay in the release of results, but be rest assured that we are releasing the results well in time for transition and admission into higher and technical institutions for next academic year. This was the largest cohort of examination candidates ever, and we wanted to make sure we do due diligence. We just returned from the Transforming Education Summit in New York, where Sierra Leone's President, His Excellency Dr. Julius Maada Bio, was co-chair along with the UN Secretary General. This global honor comes from our sustained investment in education and our renewed commitment to keep transforming learning for all. Transforming Learning for All is in fact the title of our Education Sector Plan 2022 to 2026, which will shape all our interventions over the next 5 years. In New York, President Bill committed to sustaining an investment of a minimum of 20% in the education sector, in addition to the following: that Sierra Leone will cut in half the number of out-of-school children of primary school age by 2030 compared to today; that Sierra Leone will launch an alliance of foundational learning through which we further commit to cutting the rate of learning poverty in half or more by 2030; that we commit to preparing our students for the future by making climate education a central component at all levels, and that we commit to setting measurable targets for skills training and technical education. Today we will release to candidates the West African Senior School Certificate Exam WASSCE 2022 conducted by the West African Examination Center. Ladies and gentlemen, there's lots to be proud of as a nation. But before I announce some of those metrics of interest, I want to remind us of the following impact of the free quality school education that will place these numbers into some context. When parents save tuition fees, examination fees, and costs of core textbooks, they reinvest it largely in the education of their children. When government ensures that 3.1 million core textbooks in English and Maths are in the hands of our secondary school children today, they learn. When government ensures that it recruits and trains more teachers, increasing their salaries 3 times in 5 years, they perform better. When government makes learning materials like past papers and other curriculum content freely available to students using digital technology like the Learning Passport, we see improved learning. When governments invest in building hundreds of classrooms, providing thousands of furniture, and making schools safer, ensuring our children can go to school and return home safer through school transportation, those children feel safer and will learn better. When government reviews all its education curriculum, making it fit for purpose, our children become more competitive globally. And when governments engage students, teachers, parents, and the community in the provision of a more inclusive and equitable education, quality improves for all. These are but a few commitments we have sustained over the last 4 years. While we are not surprised by the outcomes, and the jump is not spontaneous, that is, we've been seeing upward trends over the last few years, we're hopeful that we have more to do as we seek to transform our country through education. And now for some key highlights. The number of candidates sitting WASSCE has increased by 479% between 2018 and 2022, reaching a record of 186,695 students for whom results have been released to the MBSSE. The rest have been withheld, and schools should follow WAEC protocols with any grievance redress. For the second year in a row, there are more female students than male students sitting WASSCE. The pass rate for individual papers has climbed from 64% in 2021 to 77% in 2022. The number of students obtaining the benchmark 5 credits in a single sitting has increased by 1,863% between 2018 and 2022. The top student this year sat and passed all 8 of their subjects with an average grade of 1.63. That is something better than a B2. The top student was a girl, and the joint second was also a girl. The top school saw 100% of its candidates obtain the benchmark 5 credits, as well as all meeting the minimum requirements for direct entry to university degree programs with one sitting. Though we must say there are many other ways in which students can transition out of WASSCE. The number of candidates achieving direct university degree program and the number of candidates achieving direct university degree programs entry requirements by obtaining 5 credits, including a credit in English language and a maths in a single sitting, has increased by an amazing 1,781% over the period of 2018 and 2022. In 2022, more than 108,000 students obtained the requirements, which is more than the previous 5 years combined. More females than males obtained these requirements. The pass rates for English language and mathematics are 63% and 90% respectively. Males slightly outperform females in English language nationally, but in mathematics the opposite was true, with females outperforming males. There remains large variation in performance across subjects. Of the 22 subjects with most candidates sitting, science, core science, had the highest pass rate of 95%, and commerce the lowest with 11%. There remains large variation in performance across districts, including in terms of average grade unit, percentage obtaining 3 and above credits, and for obtaining the requirements for entry into full first degree programs. Now, the top 10 schools based on average grades are Kenema, from Kenema, Kamboy Lebanese Senior Secondary School, Western Urban, Science World SSS, Blackhall Road, Western Urban, Providence International Senior High School, Western Urban, Hammond International Academy Secondary School, Bonth, Mallory Yansin Memorial High School, Western Urban, Pentecostal SSS Aberdeen Ferry Road, Port Loko, Forlang School of Excellence Educate SSS, Western Rural, Daily Pedal International High School, Western Rural, Extra Mile Obafunkia Community SSS in College. The top 4 candidates based on average score grades are from Kenema, Kamboy Lebanese Senior Secondary School, Nazmas Kaike with 6 A's. From Kenema, Community Initiative Academy Senior Secondary School, Khadija Hassan Kalon with 5 A's. West Urban, Providence International Senior High School, Freetown, Peter Onyeka Chizo, 5 A's. And from West Urban, from Salin High School, Freetown, Julius Alipaka, also with 5 A's. I would like to wish all candidates, parents, and most especially our teachers big congratulations. We won't stop having high expectations of you and ourselves because our future depends on it. Let's keep transforming education and learning for all. Thank you.
We thank you very much. He is the Minister of Education, David Moinina Sengeh, who just read the 2021-2022 WASSCE result. Now, Minister, I'd like to ask you 1 or 2 questions relating to the result you just read. We saw that by far, even before you just read it, by far you described this year's result best so far in recent history. What could you attribute this level of success to?
I think it shows that when a country makes an investment in education, in its people, and sustains it, it leads to positive outcomes. We've seen that. That's how South Korea transformed. That's how Singapore transformed. That's how Finland transformed. That's how America transformed. That's how Sierra Leone will transform. And I think over the last 4 years, President Bio has ensured that even in COVID, all other countries were removing money, and we just heard that in New York this is a global problem. They remove money from education. In Sierra Leone, we increased money in COVID time for education. We increased teacher salary in the middle of COVID. We had school feeding when we brought students. We expanded radio teaching. We bought new teaching materials. We introduced civics in the middle of COVID into our schools. Today, you have civic materials all over our public schools. And I think it's just such vision that the president has to transform in this country through education. And when you invest in people, like I said, when parents save money, they're not gonna misspend that money. They put it back in their children, and often in the girls, because when there's not enough money, that's when your mother says, oh, I don't have money to buy for you something, you know. So it's the sustained investment.
All right, another thing we notice is the female candidates are making such a pass this year and previous years also. I heard you say that girl scored higher in mathematics, which is an area very tough, sometimes even for boys also. Are there particular technique that you have been administering to making sure that these girls understand the nitty-gritties of mathematics so that they can apply themselves during exams?
I think it's such an important thing because there used to be a big lag, right? So we didn't even have gender parity in Sierra Leone until recently. And I think what happened is we as a country decided to focus on girls and gender. From the national level, but also through radical inclusion. And radical inclusion focused on girls who are pregnant parent learners, people who are poor and in remote rural areas, people who have disabilities. And the thing with radical inclusion is when you make things accessible for those who need it the most, everybody improves. And that's essentially what we're seeing. And back to this point about when you invest in parents, they put it in their children. And more recently, we see that if you put it in your girl child, you have a lot more returns. So it's the best investment you can do. If you want to retire and grow old and have your children take care of you, you must invest in your female children. And I think our parents are beginning to understand that.
Alright, so I am very sure my viewers right now, the candidate who took this exam, are very anxious to see if the results are on the internet. Has it actually been released to the internet, or are you about to tell us when it will be released?
WASSCE will release it on their server at 2 p.m. today. And we have the physical copies, and that is being dispatched to the districts now. So for parents who cannot afford that, they can wait for the physical copies that will be on their way today. And the WASSCE server, which is how people check their results usually, will be active, I think they said 2 p.m.
Okay, so now let's talk about the limited few that their results were withheld. I understand over 90% of the results will be released to the public, but the few who are withheld, is there a particular way you could actually tell us what reasons as to their withheld in their results?
There are three large categories. There are those who say we're suspected of malpractice, and that usually requires people checking. I must say, for marking this time, it's a conference marking that we have been doing now over the last couple of years. So if you're suspected of malpractice, then your results will be held. There are some private schools who registered candidates who did not pay WASSCE. You know, government pays for public students. Those schools, their results were withheld until they pay WASSCE. So you see a lot of people say their results did not come, and they're usually in private schools. There are some students as well who were in SS2 and sometimes in SS1 who went and took exams. And you know, it's something that we try to discourage, and where it is obvious and they find that you're one of those candidates who try to cheat the system, your results will likely be withheld as well. And then there are just other anomalies where people did not show up or showed up in pattern and being missing.
All right, now to dig in depth to that one, I'm sure at a later date that this student whose result were withheld will be released in the future. Now, for those particular ones who actually sat to the exams but their school refused to pay for the examination, I'm sure it will be released. Could you delve into that so we would know at what particular date they would receive their
I think as long as they pay WAEC, the results are there. It's they're withheld because they didn't pay. And one thing I like about WAEC is that they allow the students to take the exams, and then because they will have
to crown it all, when they pay, it will be released.
When those private schools, and the list is there, I think there are about 50 schools or so, 50 or 53 schools, but those lists are there and we can make them available. When they pay, they will get their results.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It is the Minister of Education, David Moinina Sengeh, who just made the announcement of the 2021-2022 WASSCE examination result.